The VO Meter, measuring your voiceover progress. The VO Meter is brought to you by VoiceActorWebsites.com, Vocal Booth To Go, PodcastDemos.com, Global Voice Acting Academy, JMC Demos, and IPDTL. And now, your hosts, Paul Stefano and Sean Daly.
Let's talk a little bit about your characterization choices. Do you approach it the same way for each genre, or does it kind of depend on the source material?
Well, it does. I mean, and in that sense, perhaps the genre, but it depends how the author. Well, and the examples would be, if it's Charles Dickens, they're very broad characters, and I know that world. That's an easy word. And there are writers who'll write like that. If it's a comedy, if it's a humor book, then you're going to have some liberality with the way that people are, and you'll get sort of eccentrics and so on. If it's a murder mystery, you don't want too many huge broad characters. You don't want to indicate who people are necessarily, because you might be giving away the plot. I'm very unprocess worthy, if that's a word. I tend to go by instinct all the time, and because I work alone and don't have a producer, director, and studio time to pay for and all the rest of it, and engineer and so on. If I feel like something's not working, I can stop and go back and do it again. For the most part, I feel like it tends to work. My instincts are pretty good. I was just looking because Audiophile magazine did in June is audiobook month. They had profiles every day of their golden voices, and I was one of them. And they mentioned Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, and the comment they had from somebody reviewing it was that all the voices fit perfectly. And I thought, oh, that's good. I'm so glad. It's like, oh, I guess they did. I feel like, I'm telling a whole story. I don't want to do anything that jars the listener out of the story. I think that's a good rule. You don't want to be picking a character that doesn't fit. Otherwise, the listener's going to be sort of thinking about you and what you, or that voice or that person, and they're not going to be listening to the story. So whatever you do needs to fit with the story, and that, in a sense, will mean that certain genres may get different voices. I mean, obviously in fantasy, you're going to have a lot of orcs and trolls, and you don't have a lot of trolls with high-pitched voices, talking very delicately. I suppose we could now. I don't know. But most of the time, they're all like that. So that's the kind of voice I do for that. So it does vary across the way, but it's usually, as I say, instinct.
Very cool. So extending from that, do you find that you have to tweak voices since it's such an instinctive process, or is it you just make that choice at the beginning and that tends to be the one that fits, that feels appropriate to you?
Yeah, I think it's important. Tweaking something later on is difficult because then you might have to go back and redo
Oh, absolutely.
No, I get it. Here's an interesting thing, though. I was responding to somebody sent me a friend knew somebody who liked books and had a couple of questions. And one of the questions they said, it felt more like a criticism. It was like, why do voices vary sometimes? And it's like, oh God, do they? Which one did I do where they varied? You hope they don't. And yeah, I mean, it's just that would be a mistake. I think it comes immediately or not at all. And so I don't find myself double guessing later on. I think it's rare that I've ever got. I mean, the thing is, you tend to review the book. I hesitate to say prepare by reading it 100% because I'm very experienced and I can pick up a lot from a scanning the book. I tend to scan the book. If I'm looking for words, then I'll scan words. Sometimes I'll read it solidly. I'm right in the middle. You mentioned The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I'm about to start recording the 6th book in that series next week. So I'm actually reading that solidly because it's the kind of book that you need to know who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. And there's a lot of characters coming back from previous books. So I've got to find out who they are and refresh my memory on the voices. But generally speaking, I will get the idea of the character by scanning the book, and that'll be enough. And so when I commit at the beginning, I'll stick with that voice.
Thanks for listening to the VO Meter, measuring your voiceover progress. To follow along, please visit www.vometer.com.
The VO Meter is powered by IPDTL.